Incredible twist. Fake cops target family unknowingly facing 12 hidden federal agents within. Sarah Johnson slammed the door shut, her heart racing as shadows loomed on the porch. Two men in plain clothes, badges tucked awkwardly into their belts, had knocked insistently, claiming to be police officers. "There's been a complaint involving your home," one said, his voice a gruff baritone that grated against the warmth of her evening. Her stomach turned. Their manner was too casual, their body language too rehearsed. She sensed the danger, felt it throbbing in her chest. As a nurse, Sarah was trained for emergencies, yet this felt different. Her family was at stake. A sense of duty consumed her. She had always been the cornerstone, the steadfast presence. What if these men were indeed impostors with malicious intent? Did they know anything about Mark or how defenseless her children could be if they were left alone with a threat? Her mind raced with the weight of what was right and what could be potentially disastrous. Should she call for real officers, risking escalation, or stand her ground, demanding proof of their claims? Emma and Liam were only a few feet away, oblivious to the tension that coiled like a sprinter waiting for a gun. "Mommy, who are they?" Emma's innocent inquiry cut deep, reeling Sarah back into her protective instincts. Regardless of her heart's fearful pounding, she had to be brave for her children. But was she strong enough? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The impostors exchanged glances, and doubt crept deeper into Sarah's mind. Who were they really? A chill spread through her, igniting the memories of her grandfather's stories about justice and honor, values she upheld fiercely. There was no option for inaction. All she could think about was how to shield her family. Each breath felt irregular, weighed down by the possibility of losing them. Adrenaline surged as she maneuvered her children behind her, her thoughts shifting rapidly to her husband, Mark, and the spacious backyard they loved. She might have protected her family's home, yet was it really home? Could a facade built on memories hold against the hidden dangers that lurked outside? Panic bubbled to the surface as the shadows grew longer, aligning with her internal turmoil. Just as she was spinning parameters in her mind, unnerving thoughts about the past began to unfurl. A tangled web of family history riddled with secrets, injustices that reverberated quietly through the years. Could these men be seeking retribution for someone her grandfather once wronged? With every passing moment, Sarah felt the stakes rising like smoke filling her lungs. The value of truth now felt like a thicket of thorns, and she couldn't help but tremble at the prospect of confronting the shadows of her legacy. Her phone buzzed from the kitchen, a reminder that the world outside her door moved on, indifferent to her struggles. Time felt disjointed, each tick echoing with urgency that felt urgent against the heart of her family. Would she stand and fight or let the pressure of history crush her? The decision bore down heavily, leaving her suspended in the chaos. A resolve to seek justice stirred within her, intersecting with the maternal instinct that urged her to keep her children safe. Would she confront the impostors and reclaim her family's honor, or surrender to the legacy of fear? The tug of war inside her escalated as the door rattled softly, prompting her heart to stutter. And in that fraught moment, she was left to wonder. When push came to shove, what was she truly capable of? Sarah's mind raced, teetering on the edge of a precipice that seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. The stakes were higher than she had ever anticipated. It wasn't just about confronting imposters at her doorstep. It was about confronting the very essence of who she was and the legacy of strength tied to her family's history. Taking a deep breath, she shifted her stance, grounding herself against the wooden frame of the door. The children were her anchor, their presence both calming and motivating. Every instinct was screaming at her to protect them, but the hesitation to act was equally paralyzing. What if she made the wrong choice? The last thing she wanted was to invite real danger into their lives. "Mommy." Liam's small voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, tugging her back from the brink of indecision. "Why do they look so mean?" His simple observation pierced through the haze of adrenaline and fear, and she glanced back at the men, analyzing them more critically. Their eyes flickered back to their hands, the way they fidgeted with their badges as if they were brittle pieces of paper that might crumble any moment. "Because they know we won't trust them," she whispered, half to herself and half to her children. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. If trust was what they were after, perhaps launching a counter-offensive would unveil their true motives. "Stay here," she instructed Emma and Liam, keeping her voice steady and reassuring despite the chaos swirling inside her. The resolve that had begun to flicker found its flame. She took a step away from the door, heart pounding as she reached for her phone. To call the police now felt unnervingly proactive, yet every part of her urged it. The thought of relying on external help was daunting, as was the thought of being entirely on her own. With a steadying breath, she dialed 911, her fingers trembling slightly against the screen. The operator answered swiftly, and Sarah recounted the situation in succinct yet urgent tones, noting the men's description and the counterfeit badges. As she spoke, she realized something vital. This was not just about protection, it was also about validation. "Stay on the line with me," the operator said, their voice steadying her swirling emotions. Sarah ended the call and stepped back towards the door, reaffirming her position. The impostors were still there, lulling themselves into an illusory sense of power that only fueled her determination. Their facade of authority was a thin veil, one she was ready to rip away. "Who are you?" she called out, voice firm yet unwavering. A mother confronting a threat, a warrior she hadn't known lived within her. The men paused, the surprise evident on their faces. "Ma'am, you need to open the door, there's serious business at hand." The gruff one attempted to reclaim authority, but the facade was cracking. "Prove it." Uncertainty surged in her veins, yet it wasn't fear that coursed through her. It was empowerment. The subtle shift within her was a loud declaration. "I will not be a victim. I will be my family's protector." The ground she stood on no longer felt tenuous. It felt solid. The previously assertive impostors exchanged glances, their bravado faltering as they hesitated. It was a moment ripe with tension, a pivotal discovery for Sarah. She was no longer just a nurse. She was a force to reckon with. And just as she thought she had seized the confrontation, her phone buzzed again, a text message flashing on the screen. A warning? A plea for help? Trusting her instincts, she glanced down, only for the room to darken with an ominous shadow as a third figure loomed closer, hidden until now. The moment of truth was at hand, and Sarah was caught between a past unraveling and a present threatening to swallow her whole. Would this be her moment of strength or despair? As the door remained ajar, one question hung fiercely in the air. Would she fight to unveil the truth lurking behind these intruders? Or would the dark legacy of her family come crashing down around her? The figure emerged from the dim light, casting a foreboding shadow that stretched across the threshold. Sarah's heart raced, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Who was this new presence? An ally or another adversary? Every breath felt shallow as she held her ground. The impostors outside faltered slightly as if sensing the shift in power. Their confidence was a flimsy facade, and in that moment of uncertainty, Sarah saw a chance to regain control. She straightened her back, recalling her training as a nurse. Every patient had a story, and every situation required discernment, calmness, and the strength to act decisively. "Who are you?" she demanded again, this time with deeper conviction, her voice unwavering. The words were not merely a challenge, they were a declaration. She might have been outnumbered, but she would not yield. "Stand down, ma'am," the newly arrived figure said, stepping forward with an air of authority that contrasted sharply with the trembling impostors. He was taller and commanded attention. His clothes were professional and purposeful. The badge protruding from his pocket was real and glinted with a promise of safety. "Are you with them?" she asked, simultaneously cynical and hopeful. "I'm with the Bureau," the man replied, and Sarah noticed the genuine concern in his eyes. "We have reason to believe your situation is more complex than you know." A spark of determination ignited within her. She had never been one to back down from a fight, but now, with this unexpected ally, she felt a surge of confidence. "What exactly are you talking about?" The man took a cautious step closer, eyes flicking to the impostors who were now visibly anxious. "We know they're fakes, but they're after something that could put your family and many others in danger." "What do they want?" "Information," he replied. "And they think your family possesses it. We need to protect you, but we can't do that if you don't trust us." Trust. The word hung in the air, brittle and full of weight. Sarah's childhood lessons echoed in her mind. Trust was a fragile thing, often lost in the murky waters of deception. She had learned that it could take a lifetime to build, yet moments to shatter. But these men had come uninvited to her home, threatening her children, and they surely were no better than the impostors. Or were they? "Prove it," she whispered, almost instinctively raising a hand to stop him. "You say I'm in danger. What exactly do you know?" The man opened his mouth to speak, but paused as both of the impostors squirmed, clearly on the verge of bolting. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She had learned over the years to read body language and silent cues from her patients. Their anxiety mirrored her own questions. "Your time is running short, ma'am. They're about to freak out," he warned, voice urgent. Anxiety washed over her again, but it was fused with determination. She had to act, and she had to act fast. "Emma Liam!" she called back, voice ringing with a strength she had just unearthed. "Stay inside! Lock the doors!" The children obeyed, sprinting away from danger while Sarah locked her gaze onto the impostors. "I don't want to play games. I will call the police again, and this time, you won't be able to talk your way out of it." The impostors exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They were cornered, and their bravado was dissipating. The man from the bureau caught her eye. "You're doing great, but we need them to think they still have some control. Can you keep them talking?" Just then, the newest threat, the third figure, fidgeted at the periphery of the scene, its intentions veiled yet menacingly palpable. As Sarah processed this new dilemma, something deep in her began to surface. A plan. "Right," she murmured, and with one resolute breath she stepped forward. "Let's see what they got." But before she could execute her strategy, the situation took a dramatic turn, as the third figure stepped fully into view, revealing an unexpected connection that sent her heart racing with a new kind of dread. Would Sarah's resolve hold as the layers of deception peeled back, revealing the intricacies of danger too close to home? The tension in the air was thick, a palpable fog of uncertainty that wrapped around Sarah like a vice. The figure that emerged from the darkness drew closer, shifting into view. A familiar face, someone she had trusted not long ago. It was Ben, her neighbor, a seemingly innocuous man who had always offered a friendly smile during casual chats over fences. How could he be involved in something so sinister? Ben? The name slipped from her lips like a knife, slicing through the confusion. She felt a surge of betrayal, unraveling the very fibers of her composure. "What are you doing here?" "Sarah, listen," he started, but she cut him off, her voice holding a steadiness that surprised even her. "You're one of them, aren't you? I can't believe you'd stoop this low." Her heart thundered, fueling a resolve that surged forth from deep within. She wasn't a victim. She was a protector, steeped in maternal instincts honed over years of caring for others. "It's not what you think," he exclaimed, a tremor in his voice. "I never wanted any of this, but they have something over me. I was trying to keep you out of it." "Keep me out of it?" Sarah's indignation flared. "You've already put my family in danger. How could you?" Silence crashed like waves against jagged cliffs, the conflict unfolding between them reflected in the impostors, who edged back, sensing the tide turning. The bureau representative remained steady at her side, undeterred by the emotional tempest. "This is what we feared. People you trust can wear false masks. But the truth is more dangerous than you know, Sarah. We believe your family holds information that could dismantle a much larger threat. Trust has to be redefined at this moment. She took a deep breath, sorting through the chaos in her mind. So, it's like a web? I'm not just a pawn. I'm a target because of who I know. Precisely, he confirmed, his eyes surveying the scene keenly. But you have more power than you realize. Remember your training as a nurse? Focus on the task. Assess the vital signs of the situation. What's the real risk here? Fury and fear warred within her. Could she really trust these strangers cloaked in authority? Yet as she stole glances at Ben, the man she thought she knew, a new clarity seeped in. He had never intended for harm, but rising tides of desperation had driven him into choices shadowed by fear. Why would you join forces with impostors? Were you scared of what they'd do? The words felt raw and concerted, her every syllable dripping with intensity. I thought I could keep you safe. I didn't know who to trust. Ben's desperation surfaced, contagious doubt lurking in his eyes. Her instincts kicked in alongside a flicker of empathy. Maybe Ben had merely mirrored her own apprehensions. Anxiety that once stunted her own capabilities now crystallizing into focus. She had been pushed to rely on herself, and through it, build an innate strength she was just beginning to understand. Then help us, she said finally, the weight of vulnerability forged into unyielding strength. We can outsmart them, together. We've got to turn this situation back on them. Ben's eyes lit up, albeit cautiously. Yet a spark ignited beneath the surface of their previous acquaintance. Okay, I can gather information, a code they use. He shifted, clearly grappling with this shift in roles. But this is risky. Riskier than staying silent? The edge of her voice cut, sharpening her point. We have to think ahead, Ben, if we want to survive this. As their eyes locked, an understanding began to form, strengthening the fragile trust tethered between them. Inspired by her new clarity, Sarah felt the walls of her self-doubt starting to crumble. Being mere windswept leaves in the chaos of fate was no longer an option. Together they could rewrite this harrowing narrative. The impostors might have reasons lurking in their darkened hearts, complexities hidden beneath their facades, but Sarah felt an unfamiliar resolve surging forth, a rebellion against the tide of fear. Let's begin, she said quietly, glancing at the bureau agent who nodded, his gaze revealing the respect she'd unknowingly earned. The plan blossomed further, but time was fleeting and risks were mounting. As the weight of the moment bore down, a frantic thought pierced her mind. What if the true danger was more extensive than they had anticipated? With adrenaline spooling, she prepared for action. The time to confront both her fears and the nature of those who threatened her family had arrived. Before she could strategize their next move, a revelation hit her, an unsettling possibility that had been missing until now. Ben, if they see you as a threat, they might target you next. And just as the danger of their plan settled in, they heard footsteps marching toward them from the darkness, immune to the light of truth she had now forged. Who had come to stake their claim in this twisted game? The stakes were rising, and Sarah's newfound resolve faced its ultimate test. The footsteps grew louder, a menacing rhythm echoing in the stillness that enveloped them. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in her chest like a war drum, each beat a reminder of the precarious situation she found herself in. She quickly assessed their environment, every detail sharp against the backdrop of chaos swirling in her mind. The shadows cast by the meager light revealed crumbling walls and flaking paint, a derelict setting that mirrored the fracturing trust around her. Ben, we need to move now, Sarah urged, her voice low and steady despite the rising panic. He nodded, his earlier determination flickering in the unknown headlights of fear. As they turned to flee, her thoughts skittered across the precarious landscape of their plan. A wave of responsibility washed over her. This was no longer just about survival. This was about seizing control of the narrative that had spiraled out of her hands. With every stride, she felt the significance of her choices tugging at her. Years spent in the emergency room, immersed in crises day after day, reshaped her fundamentally. She had honed the ability to remain calm under pressure, and now was the time to harness it fully. They were not victims. They were strategists, bound by a mutual goal, cradling potential for action within their flaws and failures. They raced down the dimly lit corridor, shadows shifting as they moved, and Sarah's mind turned inward, frantically analyzing the information they possessed. She remembered the Bureau agent's words. Trust had become a weapon, yet in this moment of uncertainty, her focus now encapsulated something vital. "So what's our next move?" she asked sharply. Ben paused, taking a moment to gather himself. "I need to access my contacts. One of them is familiar with the local networks. If we can get that code, we'll know how to navigate whatever they're planning," he replied, his voice lower but tinged with an urgency that grounded their immediate reality. "Let's do it then. But stay sharp." Sarah's heartbeat quickened and the weight of her new resolve saturated her senses. This was the crossroads. She could either be defined by her circumstances or become the architect of decisive change. It was time to confront the woman she was becoming, an unrelenting force against deceit and corruption. As they skittered around a corner, Sarah caught sight of a figure emerging from the shadows. Muffled whispers hinted at more than one presence ahead. Instinctively, she felt her body tense, recalling the instincts she often relied on in the operating room. This wasn't about saving lives anymore. It was about saving hers and her family's. "Ben, we might have company," she whispered sharply. The atmosphere shifted, solidifying her sense of urgency. With their hearts hammering in synchronization, the fear suddenly transformed into determination, pushing Sarah to embrace her role in this twisted reality. She noted Ben's clenched fists, the way his body coiled in anticipation. "Our priorities are clear. Gather information, eliminate risks, and shield your family," she thought, her mind leaping ahead, envisioning each potential outcome. The resilience she had nurtured clawed its way to the forefront, pushing away doubt that threatened to undermine her newfound focus. The closer they crept toward their destination, the more Sarah realized how profoundly this moment was reshaping her identity. The shadows seemed less daunting, the darkness a canvas for her emerging strength rather than a prison. Yet, with every step, the shadows loomed larger. Looming threats that mirrored past traumas floated beneath her skin, each whisper echoing remnants of her fears. "Keep low and stay quiet. We can't let them catch wind of what we're doing," she breathed, her composure both a shield and a weapon. Suddenly a door creaked ominously ahead, a flash of light spilling into the corridor as the unknown neared confirmation of their fears. Who waited on the other side? Were they allies or adversaries? Sarah's pulse quickened again, a primal instinct igniting within. "Ready?" she asked, adrenaline surging. "As I'll ever be," Ben replied, uncertainty still lingering in the tension of his voice. But just as she prepared to push through the door, another thought sliced through the frenzy. What if they weren't just unraveling the plot? What if they were stepping into a more intricate trap? With a deep breath, Sarah prepared to confront whatever lay beyond that door. The moment teetered on the brink of sacrifice or salvation, her heart poised for what would emerge and the role she was destined to play. It was no longer merely about survival. It was a battle for self-awareness, resilience, and an understanding of her own strength against sinister forces lingering in the shadows. As she reached for the handle, adrenaline surged through her veins, heightening every sense. The true test awaited her just beyond this threshold, reminding her she was no longer a passive guardian of her family. She was ready to be their fiercest protector. What awaited them outside could redefine everything, a pivotal moment where her choices would bend fate itself. Would she emerge empowered, or would the darkness prove too overwhelming? The door creaked open, the sharp sound slicing through the silence like a knife. Sarah's heart stalled for a fraction of a second as a burst of light flooded the corridor. She squinted against the sudden brightness, instinctively drawing back, but she could feel Ben's heft at her side, ready to push forward. The room beyond was vast, illuminated by the harsh glow of fluorescent lights overhead. Desks were strewn about, papers littered the ground, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. The presence of figures cloaked in shadow shifted nervously. Her instincts flared, warning her that this was a pivotal moment. "Stay close," she muttered to Ben, her voice barely above a whisper, each word measured as if the very air might shatter with too much sound. As they entered, she felt the weight of her previous decisions pressing down on her. The lessons learned over years of working in the medical field churned within her. Assess the scene, identify threats, execute a plan. Now, instead of saving lives, she was strategizing for hers. "Who the hell are you?" a figure demanded, stepping forward from the murk. His stance was aggressive, but Sarah quickly discerned a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Ben Phillips. I'm here to access the network. We can help each other," Ben replied, his voice gaining strength. But Sarah could sense the undercurrent of fragility barely holding it together. "Help? Is that what it is?" Another figure scoffed, moving closer. Trust hung precariously in the air, each tentative step measured under the looming uncertainty of motives and hidden agendas. Sarah's mind raced. This was not just a dangerous conversation, this was a potential pivot point. "We're not your enemy," she interjected, her voice sharper now, looking to glean information in the midst of uncertainty. "We know things I'm sure the Bureau would love to uncover." The mention of the Bureau seemed to hang like a storm cloud. She could sense the shifting atmosphere. Perhaps the figures in front of her were just as wary of their circumstances as she was. Playing the part of a potential ally was not entirely unfounded. She needed them to trust her. But how far could she push that without revealing their agenda? "Things," the first figure repeated, a smirk creeping across his face. "Everyone knows things. But know this, if you're lying, it won't end well for you. Then let's not waste time." Sarah's resolve thickened, fueled by the weight of the moment. The urgency behind her collided with past success. She had been a source of strength in impossible situations before. "I know where the risks lie in this operation," she continued, gauging the various reactions. "We can identify problems before they escalate, together." For the first time, she saw a flicker of intrigue, and perhaps respect, replace the hostility on their faces. "All right," the figure finally nodded, though mistrust still dripped from his words. "But if you're wasting our time, you'll regret it." Sarah could feel the stakes rising sharply. This wasn't just about strategy. It was a delicate dance on the knife's edge of survival and manipulation. Her very identity was on the line, and she was determined that this imparted realization wouldn't just be a mere instinct, but an embodiment of her purpose. As they began to drain information from the shadows surrounding them, her focus sharpened further. She'd navigated countless life-threatening situations, but this felt uniquely introspective. The stakes had never just been about her profession. Now they hinged on the safety of her family, her legacy. What she discovered was a reflection of who she had become. Each revelation about suspicious power plays and backdoor dealings washed over her with an undercurrent of clarity. This was not merely a fight against outside forces, but a confrontation with her own emerging strengths. Understanding her capabilities was a victory unto itself. Adversity was carving out a defiant warrior from the depths of her fear. "Let's say we decide to work together," the figure continued, tilting his head slightly. "What's in it for you?" The moment hung heavy with potential. Sarah realized that she had an opportunity, one not just to influence this faction but tie back to her own intentions. To protect what matters most. She felt the room shift as her confidence began to mold their perception of her. "I will find the flaw in your plans, whatever they are, and eliminate the threats together." In that instant, she felt the intellectual clarity she fought for merging with her bravado. The shadows they shared now contained the essence of her resolve. "Let's set a meeting," the figure replied, his tone less confrontational now. As they laid plans amidst the fragments of mistrust, Sarah braced herself, aware this wasn't the end. Navigating the intricate weave of deception meant grappling with more than just the immediate threat. It was about reclaiming her narrative, rewriting her story in real time. Outside the door, the darkness loomed ominously, but she was ready for the next confrontation, no longer merely bandaging wounds but carving new paths through the chaos. This was only the beginning of her relentless pursuit of truth, and she was positioned to stare directly into the abyss that threatened to unravel her world. Would she continue to wield her budding power as a force against the darkness, or would unforeseen alliances shift the very ground beneath her feet? The room buzzed with hushed discussions, the atmosphere charged with uncertainty and an unspoken tension. As faces exchanged furtive glances, Sarah felt a sense of purpose harden inside her. She had stepped onto a battlefield she never expected to traverse, where each word could ignite conflict or forge unbreakable bonds. "Let's outline a plan," she suggested, using the assertiveness she had honed in years of life or death situations. "We need to understand their vulnerabilities first. Are they accessing information directly, or do they rely on intermediaries?" Their silence was telling, shadows shifting as they processed not just her words but the conviction behind them. The first figure, still brimming with skepticism, leaned against a desk, arms crossed. "You say you're a healer, but how do you plan to find the poison in a snake pit?" In that moment she realized that they saw her as merely a resourceless doctor, someone who healed wounds without understanding the intricate machinations of betrayal and deceit that surrounded them. It was time to demonstrate more than just competence. She needed to embody authority. "I know how to dissect problems." The words were out before fear could throttle them. "I've made diagnoses under pressure when every moment matters. This is no different. I can pinpoint the lies and the truths with surgical precision if you let me." The figure studied her, brow furrowed. It was a test, one that conjured images of her past life. The smells of antiseptic and the buzz of machinery filled her memory, the tension of operating rooms where lives hung in the balance. "You trust your instincts, I respect that, but instincts won't win this game. Instincts combined with intelligence can," she shot back with renewed determination. Pushing past the fear that flickered within her, she leaned forward, the passion of purpose igniting within her. "If we're going to work together, you must trust that the knowledge I bring is valuable. Let's combine our intel. I can factor in what I know to identify their next move." The figure shifted, uncertainty giving way to a glimmer of intrigue. "You've clearly got guts," he admitted slowly. "But guts won't protect your family. Information will. We have leads, but we need your angle to build the bigger picture." As they mapped out their next steps, Sarah's competitive spirit surged. The thrill she had once found in emergency rooms now pulsed through her as they discussed strategies to infiltrate networks that had once dwelled only in her periphery. Each idea she voiced layered her voice atop theirs with confidence, as if she were sewing herself directly into the fabric of their chaotic web. "Let's focus on communication lines," she proposed. "If we can intercept key exchanges, we can anticipate their moves and stay a step ahead." The words flowed with clarity, engendering a sense of unity among the group. For the first time, she felt like more than a mere participant. She was an integral element in a larger plan. Yet lurking beneath the surface of her newfound ambition was a creeping doubt. Would they genuinely align their interests with hers, or was this a temporary truce bound to dissolve under pressure? Sarah grounded herself, promising that she would not blindly trust. Not again. They settled on specifics, timings, and places where information could be extracted without drawing unnecessary attention. Each moment solidified her role, and with it came an empowerment she desperately needed to embrace. Her mind, fueled by necessity, began executing levels of strategy and negotiation she had never anticipated within herself. Still, she caught herself reflecting on the earlier moments of doubt, the internal conflict from the life she once led, where her tools were scalpels and sutures. She now faced a different battlefield, and her injuries were not always visible. But that did not deter her. It galvanized her resolve. As they finalized plans, she couldn't shake a troubling thought. The deeper they dove into this alliance, the greater the risk of betrayal. She felt like a fragile cog in a machine she barely understood, but resolved that she wouldn't sink quietly into the shadows. She refused to become collateral damage in someone else's game. With eyes aflame with tenacity, Sarah took a deep breath, confronting the crossroads that lay ahead. Tomorrow would not just test her resolve but unravel paths she had never conceived. At the edge of her consciousness, a chilling realization crept in. If they succeeded, they might uncover more than they had bargained for, including the true source of the threat that had accelerated this spiral into uncertainty. What else lay hidden beneath the layers of betrayal? In that moment, the chaos outside seemed less daunting. Her purpose had become clearer. Yet the shadow of the unknown still loomed, challenging her. Would the mantle of leadership she had draped around her shoulders spark further growth? Or would it become an albatross around her neck, dragging her down into treacherous waters? The dawn crept in, pale and hesitant, illuminating the room in muted hues that matched her uncertainty. Sarah prepared herself for the day ahead, a day that held the promise of clarity, yet loomed like a storm cloud threatening to unleash chaos. The timelines and tactics they had discussed were now anchored in her mind, intertwined with not just her commits, but with the safety of those she held dear. They were all counting on her newfound resolve to navigate the treacherous waters. She had found clarity in her objectives, yet uncertainty clung to her like a weight. This was her first official foray into forging alliances outside her comfort zone, a realm that demanded charisma and negotiation far beyond mere medical excellence. As she gathered her thoughts, she felt the remnants of her old life pressing against her conscience. Would all the training she had undergone as a doctor translate into this unpredictable territory? Stepping into the small kitchen, she wrestled with the mundane actions of brewing coffee, but even the simple act of pouring water felt heavy with import. She recalled her time tending to patients, where precision was paramount. She had to apply that same focus now. Each word, every interaction, every decision required exact adherence to her goals, no room for error. But instead of feeling empowered by this reflection, a flicker of doubt arose. Was she truly ready for this leap into uncertainty? Determined to shake off the weight of fear, she stood tall before the mirror, acknowledging the fighter within. Today, she would be confronting not just the enemies outside, but the lingering self-doubt within her. She had to master the game of strategy, not solely for herself but for her family and her newfound allies. As she suited up, her mind strategized on the nuances of human behavior, the dance of power dynamics she had witnessed in operating rooms. She remembered the way surgeons communicated with one another, efficiently, but often layered with unspoken questions. Could she harness that understanding to navigate discussions that were equally impactful, yet undeniably perilous? Arriving at their meeting point, a nondescript cafe buzzing with clandestine energy, she entered with purpose. A palpable air of caution enveloped the patrons, many of whom exchanged glances that tinged the atmosphere with tension. As she joined her allies, she recognized her own hesitance reflected back in their eyes. Vulnerability began to compete with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "So, what's the play?" one of them inquired, his voice low and steady. Gathering her resolve, Sarah took the lead. "We need to amplify our communication networks. We go deeper, targeting the very hubs of information that connect our adversaries." Her voice was steady, but the words held weight as eyes locked onto her. Intensely focused, she picked up on the small shifts in their body language, the slight arch of an eyebrow, the subtle nod from the skeptical figure from the previous meeting. These were moments that sparked flames of awareness. She was no longer merely participating. She was commanding respect, molding their perceptions of her from just a healer to a strategic leader. As they engaged, Sarah found herself experiencing a surprising revelation. She had a natural aptitude for reading people. She gleaned insights based on whispers of tension and drawn expressions. For the first time, this realization became clear, not simply as a flash of insight, but a robust pillar upon which she could lean. Yet as optimism surged, it was accompanied by a foreboding shadow. The question loomed large. Were these alliances forged with fragile intentions? Would hidden motives undo the growing trust between them just as it began to take root? With the stakes ever rising, Sarah steeled herself for the challenges ahead. They would explore information channels, and with each layer peeled back, the truth might grow more dangerous than anticipated. As their meeting drew to a close, Sarah realized a fateful choice lay in wait. Would her commitment to this new role divert her from the path of healing she once knew? The dichotomy of her past and the bravado of her present coalesced into an inseparable tension. In that moment of reflection, she felt a tremor of realization flood her senses. Behind the mask of normalcy in the cafe, hidden agendas simmered beneath the surface. She could feel eyes upon her, watching like predators. Somewhere, Those in control held strings she had yet to see, and freedom might come at an even heavier price. With nerve and resolve in her heart, she had to confront her next move immediately. The whisper of betrayal trailed behind her. Would her instinct prove a safeguard? Or would it lure her into perilous waters she could not escape? As she stepped back into the world shrouded in construction of uncertainty, each step resonated with the haunting question, who, in the end, could she trust? The sun had barely risen higher, but the tension inside Sarah's mind buzzed with vivid intensity. She paced on the sidewalk outside the cafe, thoughts racing faster than her heart could accommodate. The weight of alliances and unseen risks pressed heavily on her chest. Forming connections outside her previous role had thrust her into unfamiliar territory. Each decision now seemed couched in the potential for grave consequences. As she replayed the meeting in her mind, a tremor of anxiety coiled around her resolve. Had she come off as too assertive? Her attempts to steer the conversation felt instinctive, yet she was acutely aware of those lingering glances. One moment of hesitation could unravel trust before it even had time to solidify. Back in her car, the world blurred past as she drove through the city streets, her mind spiraling into strategies and contingencies. What if someone tapped into their conversations? The mere thought clenched her stomach. Her medical training had honed her ability to stay calm under pressure, but this was different. Lives hung in the balance, not just her patients, but those of her burgeoning allies. She needed to establish both a trusting rapport while maintaining a veil of vigilance. She rummaged through her thoughts, recalling the subtle expressions from her peers. Sarah realized that while they acknowledged her leadership, they also assessed her vulnerabilities. Could her emerging authority withstand scrutiny? Would her past as a healer with its adherence to compassion be seen as naivete or a strategic advantage? Determined to refine her position, she pulled out her phone and began jotting down notes. A recap of their dialogue solidified her sense of purpose. She must remain proactive. She envisioned herself as a surgeon. Only this surgery required precision of strategy rather than technique. Each slice of laughter, every moment of tension shared during discussion, held an opportunity for deeper understanding, but her internal conflict wriggled to the forefront. At what point would her dedication to this new mission overshadow her medical responsibilities? She had sacrificed so much to become an adept physician, yet here she was, willingly engaging in a chess game that weaved through both morality and survival. This balancing act was not merely emotional, it threatened to dissect her identity piece by piece. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reminded herself of the values grounded in her training. It was about the sanctity of life, whether in saving patients from physical ailments or navigating dangerous social hierarchies to protect the vulnerable. Each task required compassion, critical thinking, and a resolve to confront the fractures of trust around her. Returning home, she found her daughter engrossed in a book, blissfully unaware of the complexities of the adult world. The contrast between her child's innocence and her current predicaments tugged painfully at her heart. Every moment spent engaged in this new life drew her further from the peaceful simplicity of motherhood. Did her daughter even understand the sacrifices being made for her well-being? How much longer could she wear the dual faces of healer and strategist before one overpowered the other? As night enveloped the sky, Sarah's thoughts crystallized around a central notion. The need for clarity could not be sacrificed for expedience. She had to muster the courage to ask direct, piercing questions to her allies. What lay behind their motivations? Could she trust them with her family's safety? The weight of the unknown loomed before her, a storm gathering just out of sight. In her heart, an uncomfortable truth unfolded. She was increasingly out of her depth, yet unyielding in resolve. Perhaps bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. She drifted into a restless sleep, dreams oscillating between professional challenges and personal perils. Then, a sudden jolt of clarity. The need to investigate further, to uncover the hidden layers of this risky game. The morning dawned, the horizon painted with new possibilities as Sarah prepared once more for the engagement with her allies. Today would mark a departure from hesitation. It would be about asking the right questions, diving headlong into the murky waters of distrust where she had once hovered nervously. She stepped into her shoes, the cool leather grounding her resolve. This time she would be prepared for the unexpected. As she reached for her keys, a nagging premonition whispered through her mind. Trust was a veil, and like all veils, it could easily be lifted to reveal a deeper truth. With that thought lingering, she braced herself for the impending uncertainty, knowing that a revelation awaited her. Would it fortify the foundations of her newfound alliances, or shatter them irrevocably? The day unfolded like a tightly wound coil, each tick of the clock dragging Sarah deeper into the intricate web of deception that threatened her family. She had consciously skated the edges of uncertainty, navigating uncharted territory where stakes were no longer measured in vulnerability, but in lives hanging in the balance. As she prepared to rejoin her allies, an unwavering determination shimmered beneath her skin. Today marked a pivotal shift. She would not merely participate in the unfolding narrative, but become its architect, her intentions clear, her resolve impervious. At the cafe, the familiar faces awaited, shadows of apprehension etched in their expressions. Sarah approached, fueled by the burning desire to question the framework of trust they had woven. She stood tall, wanting them to see the irrefutable strength radiating from her. "Let's evaluate our strategy," she began, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "We need clarity around the motivations behind the threats we face. Who stands to gain most from our discomfort?" A wave of silence rippled through the group, their expressions shifting from cautious acceptance to intrigued respect. A figure shifted forward, the skeptical one from yesterday's meeting. "Get to the heart of the matter if you want to earn our trust," he replied, his tone barely disguised disdain holding a thread of potential acknowledgement. "Trust is great, but what I seek is understanding. We need to delineate our enemies from our allies. If we can define the architecture of their organization, we may find our path to dismantle it," she asserted, her heart pounding in sync with her purpose. As conversations deepened, Sarah felt a shift in the dynamics. Her power wasn't only evident, it was palpable. The once rigid kinship softened, the whispers now brimming with the potential for collaboration rather than suspicion. She felt waves of understanding bridge their divides and unite them with a shared ambition. "Your confidence is refreshing." The dubious figure nodded, tilting his chin slightly in a gesture of respect she craved. "We can provide intel, but you have to share your perspective on their weaknesses." In that moment, Sarah understood she was no longer just a face amongst shadows. She had developed an essential role that needed engaging, an architect of her destiny gleaming against the uncertainty of the past. "All right," she agreed confidently, addressing the group. "Let's focus on their communication lines, the patterns they follow. They must have drop points, communication backdoors." Each suggestion that escaped her lips felt emboldened by her experiences from the operating room, the adrenaline-fueled clarity born from years of decision-making under immense pressure. As strategies were drafted, Sarah's thoughts moved fluidly from possibility to probability, from mere survival to winning ground against a formidable adversary. She forged connections, a tapestry threading her intentions into their narratives. But caution remained. Looming in the periphery was a specter of betrayal, a truth she could not shake. Was she creating allies, or merely weaving deeper into the fabric of their duplicity? Echoes of doubt formed beneath the intensity of her resolve. Could she trust them fully? More importantly, would they support her quest to unveil hidden threats against her family? The meeting concluded with charged excitement, provocative thoughts lingering in the air like wisps of smoke. With minds aligned, they were not merely allies. They had become a unified front, battling against a divided enemy. As Sarah left the cafe, a sense of purpose blossomed within, her heart vibrating with newfound autonomy. She felt she was not just a nurse anymore. She was a warrior, forging the next steps of her fate, one decisive move at a time. In the following days, Sarah's transformation burgeoned, a leader among uncertain allies, her confidence rippling through each interaction. Hours transformed into decisive actions as they strengthened their strategy, working tirelessly to map the connections of the organization behind the impostors. But beneath the shifting currents lay her ultimate challenge: the necessity to confront the shadows lurking within her. Every twist around dark corners reminded her that trust must be both earned and defined. As knowledge pooled within their group, Sarah found herself standing at the precipice of clarity. Investigations unveiled threads of information illuminating the web of deceit, stretching far beyond her immediate apprehensions. The realization that her family was not merely targeted for who they knew, but for what they represented, integrity in a sea of corruption, settled heavily on her heart. In one decisive meeting, the pieces finally clicked. They want to exploit our vulnerability, our fear. For us, the narrative isn't about fear at all, but about reclaiming power and truth. She mentored her allies. Purpose sparkled in her eyes. Let's turn our resilience against them. We will go on the offensive, dismantling their networks from the inside. The applause that followed echoed through her chest, but Sarah felt the weight of expectation anchor her feet. Would they remain steadfast in their commitment? Or would the illusions of trust unravel into betrayal before her eyes? Days flowed like a river around rocks as she maintained her footing against uncertainty, investigating leads while preparing for betrayals lurking ahead. The urgency of urgency coursed through her every interaction, revealing her ability to command a scene, shifting dynamics expertly with her understanding of human behavior. As they began executing plans, the shadows that once seemed so menacing transformed into mere obstacles. Every setback molded her resilience further. She now wore her tenacity like armor against the threats that beckoned from the darkness. And just when the clarity of purpose seemed tangible, an unforeseen twist unraveled in the wind of fate. One ally uncovered discrepancies in their intel that reached far beyond initial threats. It turned out the enemy had eyes on Sarah's very existence, a betrayal that sent thrill through her veins and reminded her that even within alliances, danger lurked persistently. Stay on alert, everyone. We've struck a nerve. But that only means we have to push harder for our autonomy, she said, an empowered fire igniting. No longer reacting to fear, she was in command of her fate, unwinding destinies one careful step at a time. With grit and strategy leading her, Sarah relentlessly sought truth about her enemies, herself, and what it meant to truly protect those she loved. As the final pieces of the puzzle began to illuminate the shadows, she felt invincible. She had forged herself amidst uncertainty into a warrior for her family, blending authority with compassion. In a tapestry woven of both victories and hidden dangers, this journey had reshaped everything she believed about herself. The victories gained were more than just a testament to her compassion. They were searing proof that she could stand as a formidable pillar against the tides encroaching on her world. As she stared ahead into the vast unknown, she felt on the verge of a powerful revelation. She would reclaim her narrative, free from fear or victimization. It would be a journey written in both scars and strength, but she was ready, unwavering in her pursuit of both justice and truth. With the foundation of trust settled on solid ground and a mission clearer than ever, Sarah prepared to pierce the veil of darkness once and for all. The shadows held stories, but now she would shape them. Her journey spiraled toward illuminating light. Because when push comes to shove, Sarah was more than capable, not just of reaction but of crafting a legacy. It wouldn't simply be about survival anymore. It would be about conquest, fulfillment, and her place carved firmly within the annals of resilience. Join Sarah on this relentless quest. Are you ready to dive into the depths of your own journey, unearthing strength in your narrative? This is your chance to embrace clarity, to wield your purpose like an unwavering sword. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support these vital narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this empowering conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation unfold. Don't wait even one more second to share. The moment to show your unwavering support is now.